By the time the meeting ended, there was no consensus, but there was momentum. Enough of the outpost leaders were willing to back him that preparations began. Before the vote was even called, ships were fueled, engineers started adapting the Helios plans to what they had, and scouts were sent to find the perfect target. Daniel stood in the hangar watching crews work, the alien beside him. "You know this path doesn't end with peace," the alien said. "I know," Daniel replied, "but it ends with us alive." Far above, beyond the asteroid's thin shielding, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, the council was already moving. Let them come. The hangar buzzed with controlled chaos. Engineers crawled over ships like ants, welding plating, swapping out cores, calibrating drives. In one corner, the Helios prototype, still skeletal, a web of conduits and emitter arrays, lay on a cradle of reinforced steel. It didn't look like the weapon that could shatter a star. Not yet. Daniel stood with the data pad in hand, eyes locked on the readouts. The numbers were holding. The power distribution matrix was stable. They had one shot at this. Helios would either work exactly as intended or tear itself apart before firing. The bearded man stepped up beside him. "Targets locked," he said quietly. "Council Fleet Assembly Yard, Sector Delta 7. It's where they're building the next generation of carriers." Daniel didn't look away from the data pad. "Perfect. We hit them before those ships ever leave dry dock." The man's voice dropped lower. "You realize there will be civilians in that system." "There are civilians in every system they control," Daniel said flatly. "And every one of them lives under the same boot we've been bleeding under for 50 years. We don't get the luxury of surgical strikes." The man didn't reply. He just walked away, leaving Daniel alone with the hum of welding torches and the slow thrum of the prototype's power core. By the time the fleet assembled, it wasn't much to look at. Half a dozen retrofitted freighters, 3 old war frigates, scavenged from graveyards, and the cloaked alien small, sleek ship that would carry Helios itself. It was all they had, but it was enough. The crews knew this wasn't a campaign. There would be no slow grind, no second strikes. This was one blow swung with every ounce of strength they had left. Daniel boarded the alien's vessel, walking the narrow corridor to the control deck where the Helios controls had been integrated. The alien was already there, fingers moving across the firing sequence calibrations. "You're certain about this target?" the alien asked without looking up. "Certain," Daniel said. "Destroying their fleet yard cripples them. They'll be too busy scrambling to rebuild to chase us." The alien's cybernetic eye glowed faintly. "Or they'll dedicate everything to hunting you." Daniel strapped into the co-pilot seat. "Either way, they'll be reacting to us, not the other way around." The journey to Delta 7 took 30 hours under full burn. The fleet traveled in staggered formation, avoiding predictable patterns. When the council's assembly yard came into view, even Daniel had to stop for a moment. The yard wasn't just a station, it was a city in space. Massive carrier frames hung in zero-gravity cradles, skeletal now but already bristling with weapon ports. Hundreds of smaller vessels swarmed around them like worker bees. Moving parts and welding armor. The alien adjusted their heading, bringing Helios into position beyond the system's outer asteroid belt. "We're in range," he said. Daniel keyed the sequence into the console. The Helios ray hummed to life, the vibration deep enough to rattle through his bones. Warning lights bathed the cabin in amber. "Charging," Daniel said. 2 minutes to full power. In the yard, the council fleet hadn't noticed them yet. The asteroid belt hid their heat signatures, masking them as drifting rock. Daniel's eyes stayed locked on the power readout. 1 minute 30 seconds. A proximity alarm blared. One of the human frigates had been scanned. A patrol ship had wandered too close. The communications crackled with the bearded man's voice. "We've been spotted. Patrol's calling for reinforcements." Daniel didn't hesitate. "Hold them off. Keep them away from us until we fire." 1 minute. The frigates moved to intercept the patrol, weapons flashing in the dark. The first enemy ship went up in a burst of fire, but more were incoming from the yard. The humans were outnumbered. 30 seconds, Daniel called out. The alien's hands danced across the controls, adjusting the firing arc to compensate for the yard's slow rotation. 15 seconds. Daniel felt the air vibrate in his chest as Helios reached full charge. The emitter rays glowing white-hot. "Fire," Daniel said. The alien hit the final key. Helios roared, not with sound, but with light. A concentrated beam lanced out, invisible at first, then flaring as it struck the system's star. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the star convulsed. A wave of plasma boiled outward, the corona swelling, light intensifying until the whole system seemed to burn brighter. On the tactical display, Daniel watched the wave front race toward the assembly yard. Ships scattered, engines flaring in panic, but there was no outrunning a star's fury. The first flare hit like the hand of a god. The yard's outer structures vaporized instantly. Carrier frames twisted and melted. Smaller ships were hurled out of orbit or torn apart in the wash of radiation and heat. The communications filled with overlapping voices, screaming, shouting, cutting out in bursts of static, then silence. When the display cleared, the assembly yard was gone. The human fleet didn't wait to admire the destruction. Engines roared as they burned away from the system, pushing drives to their limits. Patrol ships gave chase, but the chaos Helios had unleashed bought them time. Hours later, deep in the empty dark, they finally cut power and drifted. No pursuit, no signals, just the sound of their own breathing. Daniel sat in the co-pilot seat, staring at the black beyond the canopy. His hands were steady, but his chest felt like it was made of stone. The alien finally spoke. "You got what you wanted." Daniel didn't answer right away. His mind was still full of the flare. The way it had consumed everything, the way the communications had gone silent so suddenly. "Yes," he said at last. "And now they'll never forget what humans can do." Back at the fringe outpost, the reception was mixed. Some cheered, calling him the man who had given humanity its first real victory in half a century. Others couldn't look him in the eye, their faces pale at the scale of the destruction. The bearded man pulled him aside. "You've made us a target for the rest of our lives," he said. "We were already targets," Daniel replied. "Now we're dangerous ones." 2 days later, the first council broadcast reached the fringe. It was short, a single statement delivered by the council's current head. "To the human known as Daniel Ross, you will be found. You will be erased, and your people will watch it happen." Daniel shut the broadcast off. His reflection in the dark screen didn't look like a soldier anymore. It looked like something sharper. "They'll come," the alien said quietly. "I'm counting on it," Daniel replied. The war wasn't about survival anymore. Now it was about who would outlast the other. And Daniel Ross had just made sure the galaxy would remember that humans didn't die quietly.